I was able to make my T-Mobile internet 5 times faster than Starlink. Here's how. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of fireside. You know I love the fireside, that smokiness of the lap song, so good. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, hanging out, talking tech, talking photo, talking video. Today is a tech day. We're going to be talking about internet. And we're going to be talking about T-Mobile and Starlink and how I was able to make my connection through T-Mobile 5 times faster than my connection with Starlink and at 1/3 the cost. In this video, I'm going to condense 3 weeks worth of testing into maybe 30 minutes or so. I'm going to go as quickly as possible, but we're going to hit a lot of topics and I'll probably split them all up so you can kind of fast forward to wherever you want to be. If you want to skip something, go right ahead. If not, to me, watch the whole damn thing because there's a lot of good information in here. Like I said, I put a ton of work into this video. So let's go over all the topics and then we'll jump right in. How I got T-Mobile high-speed home internet without being close to a cell tower. How I picked the best antenna for my location. Is the process easy or difficult to install an external antenna on T-Mobile or Verizon gateway routers? How to install an external antenna to a T-Mobile or Verizon router. Which antenna model did I use and more importantly, why? What are my speeds comparing T-Mobile internal antenna versus the new external one? How does T-Mobile internet with an external antenna compare to Starlink? Does Starlink reduce the speeds of T-Mobile home internet? Additional tips and tricks that I've learned while making my connection faster and more reliable. And finally, was it worth installing the external antenna or not? So let me start out by saying if you're new to the channel, welcome. You probably don't know this, but I've been with Starlink ever since like the beta time, since the very beginning, and I would say about 1.5 years or so. And it is by far the best non-terrestrial internet service out there. Forget about HughesNet and Viasat and all the rest of this trash. Before they came about, before Starlink was around in my area, we were using AT&T, and AT&T in my area is complete garbage. We get 15 megabits down, 1.5 megabits up, and that's what we lived with forever. Now that's not bad if it was the 90s, but we're not in the 90s, right? In 2023, 15 down and 1.5 up is criminal. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It is absolute trash, but that's what they give you. All right. That's what I have. We do not have any type of cable in my area. We do not have any type of fiber or anything like that. I'm in an equestrian area, more, let's say, backwoods, out of the city, in a rural environment. So, like I said, if you are in a rural environment, Starlink is probably your best bet. But, as I always say, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Even though we have Starlink as a service now in comparison to before when we had just absolute trash service, the problem is we do not have redundancy. And that's why I was looking into T-Mobile or Verizon. Verizon ends up not being available in my area where T-Mobile was. So I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and bring in a T-Mobile router. Matter of fact, it looks like that. See that, guys? There you go. Is it actually focusing? It is not. There it is. Hey, congratulations. Good job. Anyway, so this is what it looks like. And what I decided was I was going to use that as a backup, Starlink as a primary and T-Mobile as a backup, because once again, we wanted some type of redundancy. And I've been doing this for about 2 months now. So every time that you see a JC Live event, I'm using Speedify to marry the two together, Starlink as well as T-Mobile, bonding them together using packet level based type of bonding. Matter of fact, if you want to get that coverage, there is going to be a link down below, 20% off. Go check that out. Speedify has been awesome for us. But anyways, bonding these together, which works out great. But I noticed that I was getting good speeds, but I felt that I can get better speeds if we can actually get the router outside. I did some testing by taking this gateway and sticking it on a ladder outside and doing some tests. And I was getting faster speeds. Obviously so, because we are indoors and the signal has to go through about 8 inches of concrete. The walls are solid, and that is a lot of concrete to push that RF, that radio signal, through. So I started doing some research about getting an antenna and mounting it outside and then running a cable indoors. This way I could have my router inside and then run a cable outside pointing at the cell tower. So that was the idea, and I did some research and I was doing some testing just so you guys get an idea with it inside as high as possible on a cabinet, going through the 8 inches of concrete, 8 inches of concrete, somewhere on there. We were getting about 60 to 90 megabits down, and I was seeing upload speeds between 10 to 20 megabits, somewhere right around there. And like I said, I knew that we can go faster. Now, this was still pretty quick. Just think about it. It's like 10 times faster than AT&T, right? That's complete garbage. So it's still pretty quick as it was, but I knew we can do better. So I started doing some research on antennas and what antenna would I need to attach to this T-Mobile gateway. And I found out that I need to pick up a MIMO antenna. And MIMO basically stands for multiple input, multiple output. It's just a type of antenna. And so I did this research, and while I was doing research, a company reached out to me and said, hey, we produce antennas. You want to test them out? And I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I'm looking to do. So that would be fantastic. So what ended up happening was they sent me over 3 antennas for free just to test out. Now, that wasn't to do a review or any type of obligation or anything, just to test out. And if I like them, then I can talk to you guys about it. So I ended up doing, once again, 3 weeks of testing with these damn antennas. From cut fingers to bloody this and bloody that and all kinds of stuff. There was a lot of drilling and up and down ladders and a lot of stuff that went on to testing it. So I hope you guys appreciate this. Anyways, how do you pick out the best antenna for your location? And that is a really good question. I'm going to tell you what I picked, and then I'm going to tell you why I picked it by the end of this video, because it is very important. Now, they sent me over 3 MIMO antennas. One is a 2x2 panel MIMO antenna. Another one is a 4x4 panel antenna. Once again, MIMO antenna. And then the last one is a 4x4 log periodic antenna. Now, the difference between the two is basically this. The 4x4 panel, forget about the 2x2 because I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, not for this application. They did send one, I did test it, but it's not helpful. Okay, so the 4x4, either which way, is the way to go. Now, the MIMO 4x4 panel antenna basically works like this. It is a flat panel that's just about square, let's say, and it has 4 antennas in it, and they're all pointing forward. Okay, so let's say it's hitting like 180 degrees, 150 degrees. That's where all of the signal is coming into it, all of the RF, right? Now, on the other hand, the MIMO 4x4 log periodic is more like 4 separate antennas that can be directed however you want to point them. And they're very specific in the point that they are picking up their signal. Okay, so with these connections or inside of your gateway, you have an LTE-D, an LTE-M, you have a 5G, and you have a MIMO. So you have 4 wires, 4 connections in there. And with that log periodic, you have a connection or an antenna for each wire, instead of all of them being on one flat panel, let's say. So you can direct each one of them however you want to. In most circumstances, you're going to point all 4 of them directly to the tower that you're trying to get the signal from. To make this a little bit easier to understand, the difference between the panel and a log periodic. Think of it this way. If you're a photographer, a lot of photographers and videographers frequent this channel because we do cover photo, video, and tech. Think of the panel antenna as a wide angle lens. So it's picking up everything this way, really broadly. And then think of that log periodic as a telephoto lens that's picking up the signal, right? Instead of light, it's picking up RF or radio frequency in a telephoto type of means, in a small cone let's call it, instead of really wide. So there's positives and negatives to using either one of them. Now, if you have a lot of antennas or a lot of towers in a cluster, but you want to pick up a signal from a specific one, well, I would then go with a log periodic and actually point it directly there. Once again, like a telephoto lens. But if you have just one, and maybe it's over a hill, but all the signal is coming from a specific location, let's say northwest of you, then I would take a panel and direct it that way, and it'll capture all of that radio frequency. Now, is the process easy or difficult to install the external antenna on a T-Mobile or Verizon gateway? This is a really good question before you even get started. The short answer here is between, let's say, a 1 to 10, 10 being the hardest difficulty. I would have to say actually going into the router and putting on those extension leads for the antennas, I would rate that probably a 7 out of 10. It's not the easiest thing to do because you have to actually get into the router inside that gateway, but actually running the wire outside and then hooking up that J mount and putting the antenna up there, I would probably rate that 4 out of 10. Just about anyone can do that. It's very simple. The next thing we want to get into is how to install the external antenna into your T-Mobile or Verizon gateway. First, I would recommend going over to cellmapper.net. What I'm going to do is down below in the description as well as the pinned comment, I'm going to put any of the links that I talk about as well as any of the products that I think that you should buy, any of the tools, any of this stuff. I will directly link to them so that you can go pick them up if you want, or you can at least reference them and find something similar or whatever. I'm going to tell you exactly what I use just to make this very, very easy. So moving over to that cellmapper.net. You want to go over there to find out where your closest tower is and what signal is it pushing out and what direction is it pushing out that signal. Now, using a compass, or you can use a compass on your phone, for example, what you want to do is see where the tower is that you're going to shoot for, the closest one, and then you want to go outside and see where that tower is in accordance to the map that you just saw. Now, when you look at the map, you'll see if it is west of you, due west, is it northwest, is it west, west northwest, is it north, northwest, where is it? And once you know where that is, you can go outside to see exactly where you need to point your antenna. For me, I'm right around, let's say, 300 degrees. So that is like west, west, northwest, somewhere right around there. The next thing that you're going to want to do is pop open that router. Now, to do that, you're going to need, I think it's a number 10 Torx, but I'll put down in the description exactly what you'll need. You'll use that Torx screwdriver. There's going to be only 5 screws that you have to remove. One of the screws will be underneath a warranty little sticker. So once you break that sticker, your warranty is gone, so bear that in mind before you do any of this. You're going to void your warranty. Now, I would recommend that you use a plastic pry bar to pop this thing open. So you're not in there with a screwdriver and kind of making chips and chunks. You don't want to do that, right? Those are those plastic pry bars that you get when you like open up a smartphone or something like that. I'll put a link to those down below also. They work out perfectly, and you're going to need that also to take off those little clips that hold on the antennas. And we'll get into that in just a second. Now, I'm not going to go into the exact taking apart of this router. And the reason being is because it has already been done multiple times by multiple people here on YouTube. So you can go look that up and do the process step by step with them. That's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you tips that I have found when I did mine that will hopefully help you that I didn't see on any other video. That's the way I work, because that just makes more sense to me instead of reinventing the wheel. So once you're in the router, you're going to find the 4 UFI leads, or the connectors that connect to the 4 antennas. You're going to need to pop those off. And to do so, you want to use one of those plastic pry bars. These little connectors are fragile, so you want to be very ginger with them, right? So Instead of going underneath one of the connectors with a screwdriver and then prying up on it like this, you see what happens? You don't want that. You want to use one of the pry bars to go underneath it and lift it up straight. Okay, that's the key here. Once again, buy a few of those plastic pry bars. You will be very happy that you did, and you will thank me for it. Anyways, we want to pop them out nice and smoothly and straightly and not at an angle. Now, once you have popped off those 4 leads, what I would recommend is just take all 4 of those antenna leads and tape them together and then tuck them away, because you're not going to use those anymore until maybe one day you want to rebuild it back to factory and you want to snap all those back. But for now, tape them together and push them out of the way. So now what we'll do is connect the leads that they provided us in the kit. Now these leads are going to be coming out the bottom of the unit. So you're going to want to push them in through the bottom, up the sides, and then those UFI connectors will be snapped right into place. Now, once again, be very careful with these UFI connectors. You want to use the opposite side of that pry bar so that it is flat. Once you hear it snap, that's all that you need to do, and now it is connected. Leave it alone. Don't think that it's not connected. As long as you can move it around and it doesn't fall off, it is connected. Now, each time that you connect one of these leads, what I want you to do is make a label and label that connection or label that lead. Now, you're going to have a red wire, which is a 5G. You'll have a green wire, which is LTE-D. You'll have an orange wire, which is your MIMO wire. And then finally, you'll have your LTE-M, which is a blue wire. Now, the color doesn't matter anymore because once you get those leads coming out the bottom, the only thing that needs to be on there is the type of antenna wire it is. Once again, is it LTE-D, LTE-M, is it 5G, or is it MIMO? You want to put a label on each one of the 4. That's going to make your life less miserable later when you're doing the setup process. Now, the next thing that we want to do is run your wire outside of your home or your business, and then also install the J-mount, or that little mount that the antenna is going to be attached to, called the J-mount. Anyways, we need to get the cable from the outside to the inside or the inside to the outside. The cable is 30 feet long, and at its thickest point, it's about 3/4 of an inch thick. So what I used was a 1-inch drill bit. Now for me, I'm going through concrete. So I'm going to use a masonry type of bit. And that bit will allow me to drill a hole through the wall. You might have a wood home, and at that point you could use a wood bit. But once again, it needs to be 1 inch thick. So this way you can push the cable through. If not, you're not going to be able to do it. I would recommend that you tape the ends together so that they don't get damaged in the process of pushing them through the wall. Now, when you're done with this process, there will be a little bit of room around the cable. I would recommend using some great stuff, some type of sealer foam to seal it up so you don't end up with like ants or any type of bugs or any moisture coming into the building. Now, after your cable is run, you're going to want to put the mount of that J-mount onto your eave or onto your wall, wherever it's going to be. Now, if you're going to use a panel style, one of the MIMO 4x4 panels, you're only going to need one J-mount, and that is it. But if you're going to use one of the MIMO 4x4 log periodic, those take 2 J-mounts because each one of the mounts will only hold 2 antennas, and you need 4, once again, all together, 4 for that style antenna. Once again, 2 on one J-mount and 2 on the other. So for me, I'm sitting at 300 degrees is where I need to point it at. So I am installing it on the north side of the building, and then I'm turning the antenna towards 300 degrees, which is once again west, west, northwest. Now, I would recommend that you leave the bolts slightly loose. The bolts that actually allow you to move or manipulate the antenna. Once again, you're going to need to move it around to pan it left and right to get the very best signal. That's going to happen in the setup phase. Once we get it into the perfect location, then we will lock it down, of course. Now, the next question is, which antenna model did I use, and more importantly, why? Well, I ended up using the 4x4 MIMO panel antenna. Now, people are like, well, why would you use the panel antenna instead of using the log periodic? Whereas you said that it's a little bit more directional, you get a little bit more gain. It is a good antenna. Well, the reason being is even though the periodic antenna is better. Now, why is it better or how is it better? Well, number one, it's slightly faster. I did get faster speeds using it, faster download speeds. I'm guessing the reason for that is it just simply got better SNR, better signal to noise ratio, right? Your signal to noise is better. Why? Because you're more focused. You're not picking up any type of rogue, let's say RF coming in from all over because you're pointing directly at the tower. So that makes sense. Now, as far as the upload speed, I actually found my upload speed slower with the log periodic. Now, that could have something to do with me not being dead on the tower. I needed to pan a little bit more, little by little. The idea, once again, with those is you need to be very accurate. You really need to pinpoint that tower to get the best speeds out of it. Also, the log periodic was more, let's say, reliable, more consistent. There was less fluctuation, which would make sense, right? Because it is more focused. Like I said before, like a telephoto lens in comparison to a wide angle lens. It is definitely more focused and you don't get any of that rogue RF coming in. So why did I end up going with a panel? Well, I went with the panel because it looks better. I mean, that's really the gist behind it. The bottom line here is I was really going for upload speed. My upload speeds with Starlink is really abysmal. 10 megabits is just not really where I want to be. I do a lot of video. I need to upload a lot of data. I need faster data. Now remember, T-Mobile was already at 10, 15. I was getting 18 megabits up. So it was definitely faster than my Starlink anyways, but I wanted faster. And I ended up getting faster speeds with that panel. Now, could I have dialed it in, like I said, a little bit better with the log periodic? Possibly. And I had to have 2 of those J mounts and 4 antennas, and it was just a lot hanging off the roof. Okay, for me, I am a minimalist, right? I want stuff to be a little bit more cleaner. Even if I sacrifice a little bit, I don't mind if it looks a little bit better. So that was the reason why I ended up going with the panel. Now, what are my speeds when comparing the T-Mobile internal antenna versus the new external one? Now remember, I was getting 100 megabits down, let's call it, right around there on average, and anywhere from 15, 18, 20 the most on the upload side with the internal antenna. But it fluctuated a lot because remember, it was coming through, that signal was coming through a 6-8 inch thick wall of concrete, solid. Now with the external antenna, I'm able to hit up to about 140 megabits down, which is a little bit faster, but this is the big but, guys, the big but. The upload speed I was able to hit is over 50 megabits. I was hitting like 56 megabits per second up. In comparison to Starlink, that's literally 5 times faster. That is amazing, guys. Absolutely amazing. And remember, that is with that panel. That wasn't even with the log periodic. That is just simply with the panel, pointing at 300 degrees. So that was a significant change when using that external antenna. Now, how does T-Mobile Internet with the external antenna compare to Starlink? And this is where it all kind of boils down to. Remember, Starlink, we're getting on average, let's say 80 to 100 megabits down, and we're getting anywhere from 10, 20 the maximum, but the average is about 10 megabits up. Look at the difference between this. You're looking at 56 megabits up with the T-Mobile with the external antenna in comparison to only 10. 5 times faster, guys, 5 times faster. Whereas the download speed, let's say maxing out at 140 megabits, okay, it's not bad. Where we see Starlink sometimes hit up to 200, but for the majority of the time, it's about 100 to 120, 140, somewhere around there. So let's call it on par. But what's not on par, once again, is that upload speed. And for me, I'm all about the upload speed. That is amazing. 5 times faster. Instead of 10 megabits, we're at like 56 megabits on the top end as far as speed. And once again, that's with the panel. That's not even with the log periodic. I might be able to get more if I really dialed that in. But with the panel, that is just amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. Now, I know some of you guys are going to ask, well, how far away is your Starlink dish, my Mr. Bevel, in comparison to this? And I'll pull up a picture and you can see it. They're about 12 feet apart. Now, when I had that 4x4 MIMO panel connected at about 9 feet apart, I got slower speeds, drastically slower. So instead of being 140, 130, somewhere around there, they were like 70, 80. It was a big difference. And on the upload speed, instead of hitting 40 and 50 megabits up, I was getting like 20, 25, 26. Still great. It's not that it's bad, but it was a significant difference. Now, some of the people are going to look at the picture and say, hey, I see a little AP there, a little access point, right? That's to a mesh network. That's pushing out 2.4 gigahertz and 5.0 gigahertz, right? Is that the culprit? And the answer to that is no. I pulled out that PoE, power over Ethernet cable, so it was getting no power while I was doing testing. Bear that in mind. And then I would test and retest. So I would take that MIMO 4x4 panel and move it to 9 feet away from Starlink, and then move it to 12 feet, and then move it to 9 feet, and then move it to 12 feet. And there was definitely a difference between those distances. So at 12 feet, it wasn't getting as much interference, so it was getting better SNR, better signal to noise ratio. Now, why is that? I don't know. I would imagine that it should be only beaming up signal from that Starlink, but it might be somehow producing some other signal coming off it that MIMO antenna is picking it up. I don't know, but I do know 12 foot was a good number. Now, if I put it at 15 or maybe 20 or even further, maybe it would help even more. But, you know, there's only so much testing that I can do. I was working on this for like 3 weeks, guys. By the way, if you enjoy this, even in the least, throw this video a thumbs up. That would be very helpful. If you want more Starlink content, I put together a Starlink playlist right over here. Please go and check that out when you're done watching this. Also, if you're not subscribed, consider doing so. If you are subscribed, click this little button so when I go live and a new video comes out, you will be notified of it immediately. Also, if you want to say thank you for all of my hard work, there is a thank you button down here. You can give $1 or $2 if you want. If not, that's fine too. Consider becoming a member of the channel. That would be even better. Also, I do have an ebook out, actually like 3 of them. You can go download them for free. Go check them out. 100% free, no obligation. Go over to JCristina.com/book. Once again, JCristina.com/book. And if you want to join my newsletter, go to JCristina.com/join. It is free. Also, that newsletter comes out to you. If you want to unsubscribe anytime, you can do so also. No obligation. So let's get back into this. I want to give you some of my tips and tricks that I've learned while making my connection faster and more reliable. So number 1, this is kind of like a recap, but there's going to be some new stuff here that I've put into this list that will help you out that have not been talked about as of yet. But to recap, number 1, you want to make sure that you understand that 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And so many people don't understand that because you need to have redundancy. It doesn't matter if you're in the military, if you're on an aircraft, on a boat, maybe a submarine or something, you need to have some type of redundancy. You need a backup. And the same thing holds true when it comes to internet. For me, Starlink is great, but when it starts raining, what happens? That's just the way it is, rain fade. But the T-Mobile does not experience that rain fade. Or barely any. Matter of fact, I did a test today comparing the speeds during a storm with T-Mobile in comparison to Starlink. And you can see there is definitely a big difference, especially in the upload speed. Also, what you want to make sure is when you begin this whole process is you want to make sure you go over to that cell phone tower mapping site. When you go over there, you can find out exactly where you're located and where all of the different cell towers are, and then which one is closest, which one has 4G, which one has LTE, which ones have the 5G. And then you can also see where they're pointing, because a tower might have 5G, but it's pointing away from you. And at that point, you're only getting 4G there, and you might want to look at, or LTE, you might want to look at one of the other towers. So start out there. You also want to download the app, the T-Mobile app. Now, this app will give you a bunch of information about your account, as well as more of advanced information like SNR, your signal to noise ratio, and a whole bunch of other things. Take a look at it, but don't count on that. And I'll tell you about that in just a second. You also want to make sure that you pick the right antenna. Now, for me, I say skip the 2x2. The reason being is these routers have 4 leads, 4 antennas. They have LTE-D, LTE-M, they have MIMO, and they have 5G. So use all of the antennas. Trust me, it definitely works better because I tried all of them. Now, the 4x4 panel is the one that I went with, and the reason being, like I said, it's a wide-angle lens. It's very easy to pick up a signal coming in from a specific location. You just point it that way, and you're going to get all of that signal. Now, if you want to be a little bit more daring and you want to really pinpoint things and pull out that telephoto lens that you have and get right in there using a log periodic, definitely go for one of those. They cost about the same. Either which way, you're going to be happy. It's just one you're going to be doing a little bit more testing and retesting to be able to get it really dialed in. Now, the next thing is make sure that you buy a bunch of those plastic pry bars. Don't go use a screwdriver and screw it all up. All right. I know there's a lot of you guys are going to be in there with like a screwdriver and like prying the stuff, especially those UFIs, those really delicate connectors. Don't go in there like that. Use those pry bars. That's what they're made for. They're made for electronics. They're plastic. They're not going to hurt anything. All right. Use those. You will thank me later. Once again, I'll put a link down below to those. Also, like I said before, make sure you label. Each time you pull out a cable, label it LTE-D, LTE-M, MIMO, 5G, whatever it is, label it. And the reason being is you're going to need that when you start doing your testing and changing of things. Very, very important. Also, like I said before, do not listen to the T-Mobile app. If you pull up the app and you go into the main screen, and then at the bottom you'll see a button that says More. If you go to More, there's something called Advanced Cellular Metrics. And when you look at that, it will give you a whole bunch of different metrics. One is CQI. The ones that are important is your RSRP and your SINR. Your SINR is like your signal to noise. Right now, I'm at a -1. Sometimes I will see a signal to noise of like a -20, which is horrible. We want to see positive numbers here for signal to noise, right? And this is why I know that these numbers are, let's say, erroneous. Okay, they're not really accurate. The reason being is when I take a look at an SNR and it's like -21 and I'm still pulling like 100 plus meg down and I'm pushing 30 plus meg up, well, that's just not right. With signal to noise ratio that's that out of whack, I shouldn't be able to do that. So don't go by that. When you're doing your testing, test based on your ping, test based on your upload and your download speeds. That is it. Change your position, change the panning, start out here, move it over like 5-degree increments, and then test and retest and test and retest over and over and over. That's how you're going to get your best speeds. Don't even look at that app because it just doesn't matter. What it tells you does not matter. Right? Don't try to dial this thing in using it. I've heard a lot of channels saying, oh yeah, you use this, you want to get the best SNR, you want that. Just don't even bother. Okay? It just doesn't pan out, so to speak. Also, do not listen to other YouTubers that tell you this is the order that you need to set up your leads. Okay? Don't do it. Do not listen to the company that has listed this is how you set up your leads. Do not listen to me This is how I set up my leads. Matter of fact, I will put maybe here and here the way I set up my leads. You can use that for a baseline if you want, but don't go by it. And the reason being is they're always different. And even when I talked to the engineers over there, they basically said, you need to just keep on testing to see what works out the best. So my recommendation is this. You have 4 wires. So let's say you have on wire 1, you have LTE-M, wire 2, you have MIMO. Then wire 3, you have 5G. And then wire 4, let's say you have LTE-D, right? Take those 2 outer, LTE here and LTE there, and swap them. All right, test that. Easy, right? Then leave them alone and take your inners, your MIMO and your 5G, and swap them. Try it that way. See how that works. And then maybe we'll try something different. Take the LTEs and move them to the inside, and then move your MIMO and your 5G to the outside. And then test it that way. And then swap it and swap it and swap it until you find something that really works out well. Maybe you have 2 LTEs side by side, and then you have 5G and then MIMO. Whatever it is, just constantly swap it and then write down your speeds next to that swap. Because then you'll always be able to go back to and say, this is the one that gave me the best upload speed. And this is the one that gave me the best download speed. And this is the one that gave me an average, let's say, best. So it depends on what you're looking for. So for me, one setup was really strong when it came to download, whereas the other one was a little bit weak when it came to upload. For me, I need upload. So I ended up going with something that gives me a really strong, consistent upload and a pretty good download. My downloads are averaging now anywhere from like 90 to that 140 range. But the uploads are like consistent, 30, 35, up to 56. Okay? They are fast. So that's what worked out the best for me. Once again, don't listen to other YouTubers, don't listen to the company, and damn, don't listen to me. All right? Do your own due diligence. Okay? The more time you spend trying different setups, trust me, the better speed and the better reliability you will get. Also, like I said before, don't forget to fill that space that was left over where the wire goes through. You don't want ants and roaches and bugs and humidity and rain and anything else coming into your structure. All right? Fill it up with that stuff. Matter of fact, I'll put a link down below to it. It works out great. You just squirt it in there. It foams up. It gets thick. And then that's all you have to do. Once it's sticking out and it gets solid, you take a razor blade and you cut it all the way around it. Don't cut the damn wire. You cut all the way around it. And now it's completely sealed. Matter of fact, you can even paint over it. For me, I can just paint some white over it. And now you don't even know that it's there. Seal up your wire. Also, remember I told you not to tie up those bolts so that you can move and pan this. At this point, it's time for you to tie everything down, right? In case of any type of weather, any type of wind, tie down all of those bolts. Each one of them have lock nuts or lock washers on there, so they will lock into place, but tie those down at this point because it is time. All right, you got to the perfect spot. Now you want to lock everything down. And like I said before, your Mr. Bevel or your Starlink dish absolutely hates your new T-Mobile external antenna. Keep them away from each other. They don't play nicely. All right, keep them as far away as you can, because if they get too close, you're going to end up with reduced signal, reduced speed, and you don't want that to happen. You also want to make sure that you weatherize or weatherproof those 4 connections. So for me, I get these nice heat sinkable tubes and you put them over your terminal or your connector and you take a heat gun to it and just go over it and it will seal it. No weather, no moisture will go in. So you're not going to end up with any type of corrosion or any type of problems later. It's a really good way to do it. Once again, I'll put a link to the ones that I use down below. They work out awesome. Any type of connection that I make outside of the building, I always use these things. They're double thick. They are just absolutely awesome. So pick some of those up. And finally, a tip for you, but also a tip for Waveform, the creator of these antennas. Now, each one of the antennas come with 2 U-bolt that connects the antenna to that mount. Well, There's two different styles of them. One is a steel version and one is an aluminum version. And what I found is with the steel, once you put them on, if you try backing it out, for some reason they cross thread. This is like the next day. So it's not like corrosion set in or something like that. If you try backing them out, they will like cross thread and they will end up locking up and they will break off. Okay. It is not a good thing. Whereas the aluminum version of them do not do that. My recommendation to Waveform is to just get rid of those steel ones and only send out the aluminums, because I broke two. So now if you're looking to purchase one of these antennas, I think you should. The nice folks over there at Waveform did give us a promo code, a discount that you guys can use, and a link. So down below in the pinned comment, as well as the description, I will put that link down there. So if you click on it, you'll end up getting that discount or using the promo code, either which way. Now, there was a little bit of blood, a little bit of tears, a lot of work, a lot of sweat, all right? But I did it all for you guys so that we can test it out and I can give you my thoughts on it. Because as I always do on this channel, I do all of my due diligence, all of the testing so that you don't have to. The bottom line here is, should you buy one? Will I continue using it? And the answer to all that is hell yeah. All right? No matter how you look at it, I am getting triple the speeds when it comes to upload. I'm getting 5 times the speeds when it comes to Starlink in comparison to T-Mobile now, which is crazy. No matter how you look at it, it's faster and it's more reliable, and there's almost no rain fade at all that I could even notice. So that is really amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. Now, what I do is I'm going to use both the T-Mobile connection as well as the Starlink connection and bond those two together using Speedify. I've been doing it all the time whenever I do the JCristina live events. Whenever we're live, I bond these two together at a packet level type of bonding, so that no matter if it's raining or it's not, if one connection is better than the other, it doesn't matter. It aggregates all of them together and then produces one bonded pair, let's say. And it doesn't care if one goes down or one is slow or whatever. It's going to constantly feed, so that when I'm live, I never go down. So if you're looking for a VPN, or if you want to do load balancing, failover, you want better redundancy, more reliability, yada, 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 check out Speedify. They gave us a promo code that gives you 20% off. The promo code, I believe, is JCristina. Down below, I'll also put in the pinned comment and the description a link. If you click on that, you will automatically get the 20% off. That link is jcristina.com/speed. So check that out. Anyways, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. Once again, I put a ton of time in it. I appreciate it if you give this video a thumbs up. That will be very, very helpful for all of my hard work. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools that I've invented over the many years for you and me. Hopefully there's something that you like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. That's it, guys. I'm out of here for another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one. Love you all.